I still remember the smell of her perfume lingering in the apartment long after she vanished, the same floral trace I used to find comforting. Now it just curled my stomach. We were on a break. At least, that's what she called it. What I didn't realize at the time was that break meant recycled romance, a soft reset for her and her ex-boyfriend to get reacquainted between sheets while I paced our apartment like a damn ghost. I kept waiting, calling, texting. For 3 weeks, I got nothing but silence. You'd think after a few days I'd get the hint. But no, I was still that idiot clinging to the hope that maybe she needed time, maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe it was my fault. Her name's Riley. And when I met her, she was a firecracker, funny, independent, driven. She had this way of looking at me like I was the only man in the room. Turns out she just had a good memory for faces, especially familiar ones from her past. She dropped the bomb on a Friday, said she needed space, said we'd grown apart, said she was confused. All the hits, one after another. I asked her if there was someone else. She swore up and down there wasn't. Her exact words, "This has nothing to do with anyone else. I just need to figure myself out." She packed a duffel bag, kissed me on the cheek, and walked out. Just like that. 2 days later, her phone was disconnected. Her sister said she hadn't heard from her. Her job? She took leave. Vanished like a magician's act, minus the applause. The silence was the worst part. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for a body that wasn't there. Walk into the kitchen and expect to find her drinking coffee, humming some terrible pop song. But there was just empty air and the dull hum of the fridge. Week 2, I stopped calling. Week 3, I stopped caring. Or at least, I told myself I did. And then, like a bad sitcom character walking back into frame, she came back. No explanation. No apology. Just a knock on the door at 8:03 p.m. And there she stood, looking tired, like life had weathered her a little, but still wearing that same smug assumption that I'd be waiting. And God help me, I was. "Hey," she said like she'd just run to the store. "Can we talk?" She walked in without waiting for an answer. Same perfume. Same fake smile. Same casual toss of the keys onto the counter, like it hadn't been 3 weeks of silence. Like she hadn't ghosted the man who swore in front of his family that he'd spend the rest of his life protecting her. I didn't say much that night. Just nodded in the right places, let her speak, let her dig. She said it was a mistake. That she'd needed closure. That she'd seen her ex, Aaron. Of course it was Aaron, and it made her realize how much she missed us. That being with him was a wake-up call. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I just smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Because by then, I'd already moved all our joint money into an account with only my name on it. I'd already changed the locks. I'd already installed cameras in the apartment and had the footage from the last time she tried to sneak in while I was at work. And I'd already found out about the hotel she'd stayed at with Aaron. They weren't exactly subtle. Neither were the receipts I pulled from her abandoned laptop. Apparently, she wasn't smart enough to clear her search history or log out of her email. So yeah, I let her move back in. Let her unpack. Let her think she'd won. Because I had plans. Oh, I had plans. Riley made eggs the next morning. She was always good at acting normal, like deception was just another meal she could cook to perfection. She even used the mug I hated, the one from our anniversary trip to Asheville. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Do you want toast?" she asked, like she hadn't disappeared off the face of the earth for 21 days. "Sure," I said, sipping the coffee I made myself. "Thanks." I studied her while she moved around the kitchen. Something had changed. There was a twitch in her movements, like even she didn't believe her own performance. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe the high she got from chasing her old flame had already worn off. Whatever it was, I didn't care. I wasn't there to fix us. I was there to break the illusion she built and make sure she knew it. I went to work that day like normal. Except I didn't. I called in sick. I parked around the corner and waited. Sure enough, an hour later, a black Nissan pulled into the driveway. Aaron. He didn't even bother knocking. Just walked in with that same easy arrogance I recognized from the one time she introduced us, years ago, as a friend from the past. His face looked different now, less charming, more used. He was the kind of guy whose confidence came from not having to face consequences. Good. That would make the fall even better. I recorded everything. The door opening. Him walking in with a gym bag. Them laughing in the hallway. Her voice saying, "Don't worry, he's not here." Oh, Riley. Sweetheart. I was always there. They didn't stay long. 20 minutes. Give or take. He left. She showered. Then she called me at noon and said, Miss you today. Hope you're okay. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I said, thanks. Just a headache. Click. That evening I came home, and there she was on the couch, pretending to watch some reality show, barefoot in leggings, like she hadn't just committed her second betrayal in a single month. I made dinner, she said, smiling like this was some sitcom and we were still in season 1. Looks great, I replied, walking into the kitchen. Lasagna, garlic bread, homemade. She was pulling out the stops. I could have confronted her, thrown the camera footage on the table like a grenade, but that would have been messy and quick, and honestly, way too easy. No, I wanted her to feel it, to sit in it, to think she had gotten away with it. Because real pain isn't a slap, it's slow erosion. A rot you don't notice until your whole damn foundation collapses. That night, I suggested we go see a counselor. Her eyes widened. Really? Yeah, I said. Maybe we can still fix this. She blinked. I didn't think you'd want that. Of course you didn't, I thought. We deserve a shot, I said instead, watching her face light up with hope. What she didn't know was that the counselor I picked, Melissa, was a close friend of my cousin. A woman who owed me a favor and had agreed to help me gather proof in the most clinical, organized way possible. So when Riley walked into that office the next week and started spinning her version of events, how confused she'd been, how I'd emotionally pulled away. Melissa just nodded and took notes. But I was the one keeping score. Every session we had was recorded. Every lie she told, every pivot, every tear she manufactured was documented and time-stamped. And slowly, methodically, Melissa guided her to open up. Eventually, Riley started to get bold again. Thought she had me wrapped around her finger. She didn't know I was already laying bricks for my exit. In the meantime, I started cleaning up financially. Quietly. Efficiently. I removed her as an authorized user on my cards. Opened a new bank account in another city. Changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance. Found a lawyer. A good one. A quiet one. Each step, like a key in a lock, turning slowly. And still, every night she climbed into bed next to me, completely unaware that her charade was crumbling by design. She'd whisper, "I love you," into the dark. And I'd whisper back, "I know." Not because I believed it, but because I needed her to keep playing her part. By the end of our third counseling session, Riley was convinced we were rebuilding. She said all the things you'd expect. "I just want to be honest now. I don't want to lose you. I've made mistakes, but I want to fix us." The thing is, she thought those words had power. But when trust dies, words are just noise. And I'd grown very, very good at tuning her out. Melissa, our counselor, kept steering the sessions toward rebuilding honesty, which, in Riley's world, meant handing me a slightly cleaner version of her dirt and calling it a confession. She admitted to reconnecting with Aaron during our break, but claimed it had ended. "It wasn't what I thought it would be," she said. "It just made me realize how much I missed you." I nodded, not because I believed her, but because her lies were still useful to me. I wanted every one of them set on record. Melissa's notebook filled with quotes, carefully curated, lovingly stored, gold for a divorce case, ammunition if it ever came to custody. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be collected. Meanwhile, Riley started being sweet. Obscenely sweet. Home-cooked meals. Back rubs. Soft laughs at my stupid jokes. She even started wearing the lingerie she hadn't touched in over a year. Guilt is a hell of a motivator. But I never touched her. Not once. That was my quiet protest. The subtle, invisible rejection that told her something wasn't right. That maybe I wasn't hers anymore. Not really. One night, about a week after her full confession, she came into the bedroom in nothing but lace and perfume. Sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tracing my arm. "I miss us," she whispered. I looked her in the eye. "Do you?" She blinked. "Of course I do." "Then why didn't you tell me you were still seeing him after you moved back in?" Her breath caught. Just for a second. But it was enough. I'm not," she stammered. "I told you it's over." "Right." I smiled, slow and sharp. Because it really looked over when he showed up at the motel on 6th last Thursday. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I leaned in. Room 114. Red door. Beige curtains. "You wore that green sweater I hate. The one you only wear when you want someone to say you look good in it." Silence. I stood and left the room. She didn't follow. The next day, she tried to play the victim. Tears over breakfast. I didn't know how to end it. I was scared. Confused. Of what? I asked, genuinely curious. That you'd hate me. I tilted my head. You're assuming I still care enough to hate. That one hit her hard. But she didn't give up. She shifted strategies. Started asking about our finances. Talking about taking a trip. Trying to merge our paths again like nothing had happened. But here's the thing. She didn't know I'd already started untangling everything. Our joint account? Closed. Her name on the title? Removed, legally and quietly. I'd even restructured the lease on our apartment, shifted it into a sublet under a shell company my buddy owned. If she left, she'd be walking out of a home that wasn't even technically mine anymore. Just a name she'd never find. I was slowly erasing myself from the parts of her life she assumed were shared. Because the most devastating revenge isn't rage, it's release. It's showing them that not only are you done, you've planned for it. Quietly, cleanly, irrevocably. I slept like a king that night. The next day, she surprised me. Can I ask you something? She said, cornering me in the hallway. Sure. If you're so angry, why haven't you left? I smiled. Because I'm not finished yet. She paled. Just slightly. Enough for me to see it. The game was shifting. The performance was fading. And for the first time, she realized maybe, just maybe, I was the one pulling the strings. Riley's apology tour lasted exactly 6 days. After that, she realized I wasn't fighting anymore. No tears, no accusations, no yelling. Just nothing. And nothing, when you're used to chaos, is terrifying. She tried to provoke something. Asked if I was seeing someone else. Accused me of emotional abandonment. Claimed I was punishing her by acting distant. I wasn't punishing her. I was preparing. My lawyer, a guy named Dom who looked like a linebacker and spoke like a tax accountant, had drawn up everything. Asset division. Residency clauses. A digital paper trail as clean as bleach. I'd followed every suggestion down to the punctuation. The day I slid the documents into a drawer was the day I started taking long walks after dinner. Riley thought I was going to clear my head. I was going to meet with a realtor. See, Riley didn't know the lease had been transferred, or that I'd already scouted a small furnished place across town, minimal, quiet, temporary. A reset button. Meanwhile, I started pulling pieces out of the apartment. My childhood baseball glove? Gone. The old watch my grandfather gave me? Locked in a safe. Photos of us? Replaced in the frames with landscapes. She noticed eventually. Where's our beach picture? She asked one morning, pointing at the now blank frame. Didn't like how I looked in it, I said, sipping coffee. She stared for a second, trying to read me. But I'd become unreadable. Neutral. The man she once knew, the one who'd get red in the face at the hint of betrayal, he was gone. In his place was someone colder, quieter, sharper. That terrified her. A few nights later, she tried something new. She came home drunk. Not the sloppy kind, but the seductive kind, the kind she used to pull in college when she wanted to blur lines and get what she wanted. She leaned against the doorframe, dressed tight, lips glossed. Missed you tonight, she purred. I didn't look up from my book. She walked over, tried to straddle me on the couch. I gently but firmly pushed her away. What the hell? She asked, laughing, like this was some kind of game. I'm done playing, I said without looking at her. You don't get access to me anymore. You're my husband. No, I said, finally meeting her eyes. I was your husband. Now I'm just the guy you lied to one too many times. She blinked like I'd slapped her. So that's it? You're just giving up? No. I stood, walking past her. I already gave up. I'm just watching you catch up. She didn't follow me that night. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. She just stood there in that overpriced dress, smelling like cheap gin and regret. And for the first time, I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not sadness. Not even bitterness. Just detachment. I used to think love ended with a bang. A fight. Some grand final act. But it doesn't. Love ends in silence, in the little moments where you realize you'd rather sit in a parking lot alone than come home to the person who turned your loyalty into leverage. Riley didn't know it yet, but the final act had already started. I'd scheduled the court date. I'd moved half the money. I'd rerouted my paycheck. And in 4 days, while she was out having lunch with a friend, she'd come home to an empty closet, a note, and a divorce petition taped to the fridge. Simple. Surgical. No drama. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to vanish. Just like she did. I left early. Not with drama. No packed suitcases dragged down the stairs. No slammed doors. No tears. Just a clean, calculated retreat, like a general evacuating a battlefield he'd already claimed as a lesson. I made sure everything she needed to find was exactly where it would hurt the most. The house was still. Her keys would still work. The walls still smelled like lavender, her favorite candle I used to buy on Saturdays. But something would feel off, like a painting slightly crooked, like a shadow where there should be light. That's how it started. She came home at 2:17 p.m. I watched her walk up the porch from across the street, parked in a borrowed sedan. She had a smoothie in one hand, a phone in the other, smiling at something on her screen. She had no idea. She unlocked the door, walked into what used to be our living room, and stopped. I imagined the confusion, the second look, the silent inventory, her eyes scanning the space like something was wrong, but she couldn't name it yet. My coat wasn't on the hook. The chair I always sat in during Sunday football? Gone. My cologne, my shoes, my shaving kit? Gone. She called my name once, twice. By the third time, her voice had that little edge of panic. And that's when she'd reached the kitchen, where the note waited. It was taped to the fridge, same spot she used to leave grocery lists and passive-aggressive reminders like, please rinse the dishes. We do have a dishwasher, you know. This one was different. It was short, plain, typed, not handwritten. Riley, you disappeared once. I just did it better. Everything is in motion now. The lease is no longer in either of our names. The finances are separated. The lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Don't call me. There's nothing to salvage. I just wanted you to know what it felt like to come home and realize you've already been left. I imagined her standing there, rereading it. Heart racing. The silence screaming. She probably checked the closet. All empty. Checked the bank app. Restricted access. She'd try to text. It wouldn't go through. I'd blocked her number. Then she'd call from another line. I'd blocked that one too. The lawyer's paperwork would arrive the next morning with all the precision of a scalpel. Her name removed from everything except her guilt. See, Riley always assumed I'd fight to keep her. That I'd beg, plead, scream. That I'd be so broken by the betrayal I'd crawl back just for the privilege of being lied to again. She never expected me to walk away with calm. To vanish like she did, only without the mess. I moved into the new apartment that night. Small, quiet, uncluttered. A place with no memories of her perfume, no echoes of her laughter or lies. There was no celebration, no drink, no victory lap, just silence. And for the first time in months, that silence felt like peace, not punishment. I lay in bed, alone, staring at the ceiling. No text pings, no soft footsteps, no gaslighting or emotional bait. Just breath. My own. Uninterrupted. The thing about people like Riley is they always assume the damage is over once the door closes. What they never realize, until it's too late, is that the echo of betrayal doesn't stay behind. It follows them. Especially when the man they betrayed doesn't raise his voice, he raises the stakes. It started slow, as it always does. First, she reached out to my sister, someone she used to confide in, text memes to, ask for skincare advice. She got nothing. I'd spoken to my family already. Told them everything. Calmly, clearly. No drama. Just facts. Dates. Footage. Screenshots. They were loyal to me. Riley was now a ghost in their eyes. Then she tried messaging our mutual friends. One by one, they either ignored her or sent back cold, single-sentence replies. Don't contact me again. I'm not getting involved. Or worse. I saw the video. Yeah, the video. See, I never meant to go nuclear. I'm not the kind of man who humiliates people for sport. But the thing is, Aaron, the ex-boyfriend, he didn't just come back for Riley. He bragged. Posted about it in a private group I used to be a member of. Tagged a mystery woman. Included just enough in his captions for someone to connect the dots. One of his buddies, an old college acquaintance of mine, sent me screenshots and a message. This guy's running his mouth like he owns your life. Thought you'd want to know. And that's when I made the decision. I didn't post the video. I didn't share it publicly. But I sent it. Privately. Selectively. Discreetly. To exactly 5 people. 2 of Riley's close friends, her sister, her boss's assistant, and, because poetic justice deserves an audience, her mother. No commentary. Just the clip of Aaron walking into our house while I was at work. He wasn't hard to recognize. Riley didn't bother closing the blinds. A week later, Riley's job started feeling a little tense. The office she used to rule with manicured confidence grew colder. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Invitations dried up. The assistant, the one I sent the clip to, had a new, icy tone. Her boss? Suddenly restructuring the department. She called me after that. From a blocked number. I answered. Mason, what the hell are you doing? Oh hey, stranger, I said, deadpan. Figured you'd lost your voice. You're ruining my life. No, I corrected. You ruined your life. I'm just making sure no one else has to learn the hard way. You sent that video to my mom. She raised you. She deserved to know what she raised. Silence. Then, you're not who I thought you were. I laughed. And you were exactly who I suspected you were. She hung up. 3 days later, her mother sent me a message. Short. Simple. I always thought you were too good for her. I was right. I'm sorry for what she did. You didn't deserve it. For a brief moment, I felt something close to pity. But then I remembered the nights I laid awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why I wasn't enough. I remembered the humiliation, the gaslighting, the quiet betrayal she expected me to swallow like medicine. And the pity vanished. This wasn't vengeance. This was equilibrium. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't hit. I hadn't trashed her reputation in public. But I made damn sure she could never walk back into her old life without seeing the reflection of who she'd become. And in the wreckage she left behind, one thing became crystal clear. She never expected me to stand up. And now she'd never forget how high I stood when I finally did. It came in the form of a letter. Not a text. Not a voicemail. Not an awkward doorstep plea like some soap opera script. No, Riley knew better by now. She knew her voice no longer carried any weight with me. So she wrote. 5 handwritten pages. Cream stationery. Smelled faintly like her perfume, probably deliberate. It was folded into a slim envelope and slid under the door of my new apartment. I found it when I got home from the gym, tucked against the threshold like it was shy. I didn't open it immediately. I poured myself a drink first. Sat by the window. Let the ice melt halfway in the glass. Because I knew exactly what would be inside. Regret. Excuses. And the classic, I didn't mean to hurt you. But the truth? She did. Not out of malice. Not out of some twisted need for revenge. She hurt me because I was easy to hurt. Because I was accessible. Predictable. Safe. And no one fears damaging something they don't think will fight back. I eventually opened the letter. Read every word slowly. Page 1 was nostalgia. I miss the way you used to look at me like I was your world. I remember our first road trip. You sang that awful song off-key the whole time. You made me feel seen in a way no one else ever has. Page 2 was guilt. What I did was inexcusable. I got lost. I felt neglected, and instead of talking to you, I ran. Aaron was a mistake. A symptom, not the cause. You didn't deserve any of this. Page 3 was desperation. I've lost friends. My job feels unstable. My family barely speaks to me. I didn't realize how much you held things together until you left. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I had to try. Page 4 was apology. I'm sorry, Mason. For everything. I thought you'd always be there. I never imagined you'd leave like I did. And I realize now, that's what makes you better than me. And page 5? That was the ask. If there's even the smallest chance you still believe in us, please, meet me. Just once. You choose the place. She left her number at the bottom. A fresh number, unblocked. A final play. I set the letter down. Stared out the window. Watched a couple walk by, holding hands, laughing about something I couldn't hear. I didn't feel rage. Or sadness. Just stillness. I could have met her. Could have let her cry, watched her flail, given her a taste of the redemption she was reaching for. But then what? I'd be right back in the orbit of someone who only noticed gravity after they'd been flung into space. So I didn't respond. Didn't call. Didn't text. Instead, I wrote one sentence on a sticky note and walked it down to the mail slot in her old building. Slid it through her door. Closure isn't something I owe you. It's what I gave myself the day I stopped looking back. I never sought him out. Didn't stalk his socials. Didn't send threats. Didn't show up at his doorstep like some desperate, wounded husband. I just watched. Quietly. Patiently. Because men like Aaron eventually reveal themselves. They always do. At first, he strutted around town like he'd won something. People talk. A friend of a friend mentioned seeing him with Riley at a wine bar. Laughing. Touching her back. Smug as hell. But I knew something he didn't. I knew Riley. And I knew she wasn't built to survive what came next. The fallout. The silence. The loneliness of her own consequences. She had always been a shapeshifter. Molded herself into whoever her partner needed her to be. But once the admiration dried up, so did the illusion. 3 weeks after the letter, Aaron's post went dark. No more bar selfies. No more gym flexes. Then one day, he sent me a message. We should talk. Man to man. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. There's nothing man to man about sleeping with another man's wife. But go ahead. Talk. He responded 5 minutes later. It wasn't supposed to get serious. She told me you guys were done. Said you didn't care anymore. I smirked. They always say the same thing. I thought you were broken up. I thought it was over. As if that made crawling into someone else's bed any less pathetic. So you fell for the same lie I did. Congrats. He pushed further. She's a mess now. Angry all the time. Always talking about you. It's like I'm not even in the room. That's when it clicked. He thought I'd pity him. Thought we'd bond over how Riley broke both of us. But see, I wasn't broken. I was reborn. You wanted her. I typed back. Now you've got her. Welcome to the wreckage. Silence. Until a week later, when a mutual acquaintance sent me a screenshot. Aaron's Facebook status, single, followed by a story he posted and deleted. Some people ruin everything they touch. Lesson learned. Guess the glow wore off. Guess the woman he once stole didn't look so priceless without the man who'd held her together. I didn't say a word. Didn't comment. Didn't gloat. But I made a quiet note. Aaron had become the second casualty in a war I never started, but sure as hell knew how to finish. Riley had tried to play two sides. Aaron had tried to win a woman who wasn't loyal to begin with. And me? I was free. Clear. Untouchable. Because when the dust settled, I was the only one who hadn't begged, lied, or run. And that's what they never expect from the quiet ones. We don't explode. We erase. You don't realize how much noise you've been living with. Until you sit in a place that finally lets you breathe. The new apartment wasn't anything special. 1 bedroom. Clean walls. Minimal furniture. But it was mine. Every inch of it was a reflection of who I was without her. No framed photos of a fake marriage. No reminders of broken promises and designer perfume. Just stillness. And for the first time in years, I filled it with my routine. I woke up early. Went running. Made breakfast for one. Read the books I'd left half-finished during the years I was too busy chasing validation in a house that wasn't a home. I changed the locks on everything in my life, physical and emotional. The people who stood by me? They got closer. The ones who went silent when the scandal hit? I let them stay gone. I started therapy not because I was broken, but because I wanted to never go back to the version of myself that let that happen again. And the therapist, a quiet woman with eyes that didn't miss much, said something in the second session that stuck with me. Forgiveness isn't always about giving someone peace. Sometimes it's about taking it back for yourself. I nodded, but I didn't forgive Riley. Not because I couldn't. Because I refused to give her that gift. She'd have to carry what she did. Not because I wished her harm, but because some consequences are called justice. Instead, I forgave myself. For ignoring the red flags. For confusing comfort with connection. For staying long after the respect was gone. That was the part that hurt the most, not the cheating. Not Aaron. Not the lies. But the quiet realization that I'd stayed with someone who stopped choosing me long before she took off her ring. I poured that anger into something useful. I picked up my camera again, the one collecting dust in the closet since before Riley came back. Started shooting weekends. Landscapes. Urban decay. The irony wasn't lost on me. I even entered a few contests. One of them? I won. $1,000 prize. I didn't tell anyone. Just bought myself a new lens and a bottle of scotch that didn't need to be shared. That was the new rule in my life. If it doesn't bring peace, it doesn't get a place. I even made a list, handwritten, taped to the inside of the bathroom cabinet. I called it the non-negotiables. Loyalty isn't optional. Silence is golden, but honesty is goddamn platinum. Don't chase people, watch who stays when you stop running. You can't fix someone who benefits from staying broken. Love doesn't look like begging. Ever. I looked at that list every morning. Every single day. Until the bitterness faded. Until the craving for closure quieted. Until the word Riley stopped tasting like iron in my mouth. And just like that, I wasn't angry anymore. Not because I got over it, but because I outgrew it. That's the thing about reconstruction. It's not about becoming who you were. It's about becoming who they never imagined you could be without them. It was a grocery store of all places. Nothing dramatic. No movie scene build up. Just me grabbing coffee beans and almond milk on a Sunday morning. I turned the corner of aisle 4. And there she was. Riley. Same face. Same eyes. But something was different. She looked thinner, drawn out in the way people do when life stops catering to them. Hair tied back messily. Jacket too big. Eyes searching the shelves until they landed on me. We locked eyes. Her mouth opened, then shut. She froze. I didn't. Hey, I said, calm as a flat sea. Mason. Her voice cracked. She hadn't said my name in months, and now it sounded like a confession. She stepped forward. I didn't expect to see you here. I shrugged. Figured life was full of surprises. A beat of silence. She was studying me, searching for something in my face. Pain, maybe. Longing. Weakness. She didn't find it. You look different, she said softly. I am. That wasn't bravado. It was truth. I didn't have bags under my eyes anymore. Didn't carry the slump of a man being cheated on by someone he once believed was home. I stood tall. Solid. Whole. How have you been? She asked, trying to sound casual, like we were old friends who'd drifted, not a woman who'd torn a marriage apart and tried to gaslight me into gratitude. I've been rebuilding, I said, quietly and intentionally. Her lip quivered. She looked down at the floor tiles. That letter I wrote. I got it. She waited for more. She didn't get it. I meant everything I said. She pushed. About being sorry. About wanting to. Riley, I said, cutting her off gently but firmly. You wanted me when you thought I was yours to come back to. Not when it mattered. Her eyes welled up. That's not fair. No. What's not fair, I said, is vanishing for 3 weeks, sleeping with your ex, lying to my face, and then expecting a hug when you ran out of options. She flinched. I didn't apologize. I'm not angry anymore, I continued. But I am done. There it was. Her world stopped moving. She wasn't used to being told no. She wasn't used to seeing me as someone who had nothing left to offer her. That's the real heartbreak for people like her. Not the loss, but the realization that they're no longer the center of gravity. A tear rolled down her cheek. I was scared, she whispered. So was I said. But I didn't run to someone else's bed. She nodded, wiping her face. I deserve that. I didn't respond. Because she did. She reached out, her fingers brushing the sleeve of my jacket. I hope someday. I stepped back. I hope you heal, Riley. But I'm not part of that process. I walked past her without another word. Coffee and almond milk in my basket. Heart steady. Because closure isn't a conversation. It's a boundary. And I had finally drawn mine in concrete. It came 3 days after the grocery store run-in. A manila envelope on my doorstep. No name. No note. Just the weight of her guilt, stuffed between legal-sized pages like it could be measured and filed. Inside were 3 things. A typed letter. Her handwriting was probably too shaky. A cashier's check for $18,000. And a keychain I hadn't seen since the year we got married. The one with the GPS coordinates of where I proposed, engraved on brushed steel. It was almost insulting how neatly it was all packaged. As if some combination of money, nostalgia, and regret would be enough to pry open a door I'd already bolted shut. I sat down, unfolded the letter. Mason, I don't know how else to reach you, and maybe you'll just throw this away. But I had to try, because you deserve more than what I gave you. The money isn't to buy anything. It's what I saved for a trip we never took, for a future I ruined. I figured if I couldn't give you the life I promised, the least I could do is give you something to start fresh. For real. The keychain. I don't expect you to care, but I wanted to return it. I used to carry it everywhere. I stopped the day I lied to you and said Aaron didn't mean anything. I hope you never believed that you weren't enough. You were too much, for me, for what I was ready for. I was stupid, cowardly, and I've paid for it in ways you'll never see. But I hope, if nothing else, you use that money for something that makes you happy. Something that reminds you who you are without me. Goodbye, for real this time. Riley. I read it once. Then again. I held the keychain in my hand. The steel felt colder than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just finally run out of warmth for her. And the check? I looked at it for a long time. Not because I needed the money. Because I knew what it cost her to send it. This wasn't about cash. This was about penance. Her way of saying, please let this count for something. But that's the problem with betrayal. It doesn't accept payment. It's not a debt. It's a choice. And once it's made, you live with it. I didn't cash the check. I mailed it back. With a single post-it attached. You can't repay what you burned down. But you can learn not to light the next match. As for the keychain, I walked out to the lake, took a deep breath, and threw it as far as I could. It hit the water with a tiny splash, disappeared beneath the ripples. Gone. Just like us.